Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where today, thanks to my friends at Gene Butman Ford in Ypsilanti, Michigan, we're driving this 2016 Ford F350 Lariat. And if this scene looks very familiar to you, it's because a few weeks ago, I was driving a 2026 F450 Platinum, and it was the same color. It was ruby red. And due to the overwhelming success of that video, that has over 100,000 views in the first couple of weeks, I figured you guys probably like heavy-duty trucks. So I called up my friends at Gene Butman. They had this on the used car lot. I said, hey, can I take this out and see what it's like to drive? Because some of you may remember that F450 that I drove was over $100,000. It was like 117 grand as tested. And I thought, well, what if you're in the market for a heavy-duty truck, but you don't have $117,000? If you don't have half of that, if you only have a third of that, this is currently listed on their website for $40,000 even. It's done 60,000 miles, and it still has essentially the same 6.7 liter Powerstroke turbo diesel V8 that the new truck has. This is the Scorpion engine. It makes a little bit less power than the new ones, due to this sort of horsepower war between GM with the Duramax and Ram with their Cummins. Obviously, power and torque are kind of boosted and changed just about every generation, and this is the third generation of the Super Duty truck. Now, before you start commenting, I know Ford made heavy-duty trucks prior to this, prior to calling it the Super Duty, but as far as the Super Duty name goes, this was generation 3, and at this time, the 6.7 liter Powerstroke made 440 horsepower and 860 pound-feet of torque. So a little bit less than the like 1,200 pound-feet of torque or whatever that F450 had, but still a very impressive number. Now, this was before the days of the 10-speed, so this had a 6-speed automatic transmission, and this truck is 4-wheel drive. As far as working with this truck goes, the actual business end, we have the 6-foot bed in this, and this is the single rear wheel. We have no gooseneck attachment, though you were able to option one on. Whoever ordered this new did not, but you can still tow a decent amount with this from the hitch. Now, I've read conflicting numbers here, but it's somewhere between 12 and 14,000 pounds, so you can still tow just about anything you want. You could hook up a big heavy trailer and tow this exact truck behind this truck, and you would be completely fine. But if you did have the gooseneck attachment, you could tow up to 19,500 pounds. Obviously, the dually can tow a little bit more because that's what it's meant to do. But even these single rear wheel trucks are still decently functional. Now, this one is the Lariat, which is the trim between the XLT and the King Ranch, or it was at this time. It went XL, XLT, Lariat, King Ranch, Platinum, which actually I think that's still kind of the hierarchy of trims for Super Duty trucks. This one, as I told you, is finished in ruby red. It's got the chrome appearance pack, which the previous owner of this truck has modified it slightly, and they got rid of the chrome, or actually they put these silly little black caps over the chrome mirrors and these silly tinted things, so I guess the turn signals work less now. And then a set of fuel wheels, which I actually don't hate. I'm surprised, but these I think look just fine on this. And we have, what is this? A Cooper Discoverer AT3 XLT. It should be the AT3 Lariat for this truck. Haha. 275/65 R20. I assume this is a squared setup all the way around here. 275/65/20. And we even have these fancy little red valve stem caps on this truck. So all the good stuff. But anyway, I figured today we would take this on a similar loop that we did with the F450. Since I'm not living with this, I'm not going to fill the bed with dirt like we did on the F450, but I do actually have to get myself some lunch. It's 12:37, I haven't had lunch yet, so we're gonna kind of commute this, kind of live with it. I don't know what I'm gonna title the video yet, but we're gonna do kind of our regular loop to downtown Ann Arbor and see what it's like to daily drive this, because I think even more than the F450, this 2016, this 10-year-old F350 makes a bit more sense as a one-car solution. It's probably a bit easier to live with, and it's a heck of a lot more cost-effective. Now, obviously, this isn't the most efficient thing in the world, and the EPA doesn't rate trucks like this, but if I remember, I'll reset the fuel economy, and we can see how efficient we are with this today. The readout is currently saying that we're doing 8 mpg, but this is, it's been sitting on a used car lot. Actually, it hasn't. This, I had to go steal this from service. They were actually about to pull it in and get it ready to go on the lot, so there are a couple things that it needs, but I took it away before that. But anyway, this has just been, moved around from place to place, so I'm sure it'll be a bit more efficient. However, I did drive this, of course, from Gene Butman Ford, and on the way over here, it feels like maybe it has a bit more than 860 pound-feet of torque. I think it's been tuned. In my personal opinion, it feels like it's been tuned. So let's poke around this a bit. I'm not going to open the tail. Well, no, we'll open the tailgate. It's all part of it, but I've got my Got my little dealer plate in there right now. This one has the optional little old man step and bar for you to jump into this bed if you need to do anything in there. I'm pretty sure this is a 6-foot bed. It definitely doesn't look like an 8-foot. Educated guess tells me that this is a 6-foot bed, but able to put like 4,000 pounds or something in this bed, which is pretty decent, or 3,000, I don't know. You guys, truck specs are very difficult because there are so many different configurations as far as wheelbase, cab size, engine size, bed size. There's so many configurations, but just know that you are able to essentially fit a Fiat 500 in here, and the truck really wouldn't care that much. All right, let's shut our plate back in here. Make sure that is nice and tight. Those are the best place that I found to put a plate like that. This previous owner put some rigid lights on this and mounted them upside down, it looks like, but they're on the back of the truck, so probably didn't have any choice. Those are probably meant to be mounted the other way, like on top of a truck or something. And since this 3rd generation truck wasn't a whole lot different than the 2nd gen, we still have these really cool old school door handles, which they do date this 2016 a bit. Like you could walk up to like a 2003 Super Duty and the door handles are just about the same, but I think it adds a little bit of charm to this. You know, I'm a fan of this era of Ford because I was actually working at the Ford dealership when this truck would have been brand new, so I used to see these get sold. Obviously back then, level of materials was not to what it is now. I mean, for a Lariat, this door panel is a bit embarrassing. It just looks like one big molded piece of plastic, because I think it is one big molded piece of plastic, and you have this kind of like textured gray material for your window switch. But Lariat did get you some luxury features even in 2016. You got leather seats all around. In the front we have ventilated seats and some wood trim, so you got some nice luxury things. And you have these chrome side steps as well that were part of that chrome package I told you about earlier. Stepping into the back, since this is a crew cab, I've got a ton of room. Now, the new trucks are somehow even bigger than this. There's just so much room in those. But even these, you know, they had adequate room back in 2016. Fold down little armrest with some cup holders. You've got some climate vents back here, which I cannot wait to get this AC going. It is 90 degrees Fahrenheit today, so I am sweating like a pig. We won't quite get to that yet, but I just want to tell you, 5'11", sat behind myself. Plenty of room, but the rest of the back seat is a bit like a dungeon. Unfortunately, they didn't really quite get to the level of luxuriousness that they're at now. And I think, honestly, that might have something to do with the fact that luxury sedans did still exist at the time. I should say, like, luxury American sedans. You know, Ford had the Taurus, the Lincoln MKS. There were still kind of those big sedans to fill that void in backseat luxury, but now there aren't, so they've had to step it up with the trucks. Anyway, let's pop this hood and show you this rendition of the 6.7 liter Powerstroke, which who knows if this was, okay, I'm going to say this was put back to stock because the airbox is not clipped all the way down. I think somebody probably before they turned it in, maybe they put some stock parts back on it. But regardless, we still have our 2 batteries here. And like I said, 440 horsepower, 860 pound-feet of torque as stock. This one I think has a little bit more. You guys will have to tell me what you think when you see me take this out on the road in just a second. But let's shut this hood. I do really like the front end of these trucks, and sometimes people will swap this front end onto like the older Ford Excursions and things, and I think that looks really cool as well. Big Powerstroke badge here on the door, and this even has the trim designation written on the fender. Somebody's gone through and done some very stylish pinstriping on this truck at some point too, all the way back to the FX4 badge. Of course, this has the slightly stiffer suspension as well, being that it's the FX4. Alrighty, up front, more leather seats. We have a moonroof in this, that wood trim I told you about, which they really didn't go too far with wood trim back during this time. It was 2 pieces total, count them, 1, 2, and that was it. That was your fancy Lariat wood trim 10 years ago. Now, we didn't have push button start yet. This has a key, which I don't mind. You know, I miss having a key. And we're gonna fire this up with the door open so you can hear this come to life. Pretty cool built Ford Tough start up there. Right. And then this gives the tire pressure monitor fault because it has the aftermarket wheels, I assume. So, keen-eyed viewers, you can see over in that mirror, we're blowing a little bit of black smoke. So I assume this truck has some kind of tune on it. I'm so excited to take you guys all out on the road in this thing. Mild window tinting as well on these. I think it's just about the right level. Any darker than this I don't really like too much, but these are okay. Massive center console, as you get in pretty much any pickup truck that was built in the last 20 or 30 years. We've got 4 cup holders in typical Super Duty fashion. I've got my Yeti in here to test out the cup holder rigidness, I guess. The only problem is if you put your cup holder here, it blocks all of your auxiliary switches. And then if you put it here, it blocks your trailer brake controller. So you have to choose if you want to manage your trailer or your aux lights, because these are a little bit loosey-goosey. So if you want to keep your cup steady, it has to be there. Anyway, this was back in the time when controls were physical, though even the new Super Duties do still have very nice physical controls. This is a little bit unique looking. They were kind of experimenting with how to lay out these screens back in this time. So we have the old Ford sync unit with the 4 corners to use this. I used to teach old people how to use this at the dealership all the time. It was part of my job when I worked at this very Ford dealer, actually, at Gene Butman. But we have good stuff in here. You know, we got volume knob, we have knobs for climate control, and the Lariat got you this Sony sound system. So I'm gonna pair my phone to this in a second, and we're gonna test that out. An actual gauge cluster, look at this with all those gauges at the top, currently reading 8 mpg average, 4,000 RPM redline, though if this is anything like that F450, it's probably not even gonna get close. But let's go ahead and pair my phone, because this is something that's a little bit nostalgic for me as well, because when you go to this, you can only do this while you're parked, by the way.
Search for sync on your device and select sync once it is found.
Search for sync on your device.
Confirm that the pin displayed on sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
Yes, it does.
For your safety,
yes,
please stay alert to changing road conditions.
Success.
And use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
I will. Let's get this thing out on the road, because I want to show you what this is like to drive. So, column shifter up here, obviously, just like the modern trucks, though this one doesn't feel as smooth and buttery. I think they added some, I don't know, they made it a bit smoother for the newer trucks. Backup camera, though, in 2016, this would not have yet been mandated. So cool to see this in this Super Duty. And the funniest part about this is, even compared to some new cars, this is not the lowest quality backup camera that I have seen lately. Into drive, that will immediately kill the backup camera, and off we go. We're immediately met with the DHL van. Give him plenty of room. Hello, sir. And we'll get this thing out onto the road. I'm going to turn this fan speed down just a bit. So, first thing I noticed, actually, is how much I hate the stupid turn signals that they were putting on these trucks back in 2016. There was this weird trend back in the 20-teens. If you drive a car from this era, you know exactly what I'm on about, where the turn signals didn't lock into place. I don't know why everyone was doing this. My mom's old 2016 3 Series did the same thing, and older like Subarus and stuff did this too, but you hit the turn signal and it bounces back, and then you have to push up on it to cancel it if you're not going around a corner. It'll auto cancel if you are, but just a bit of an annoying thing. Okay, let's actually talk about the truck now, because that's why you came here, not to talk about the turn signal. Throttle response, that's very good. Oh yeah. This truck rips. Yeah, this is really quick. And you know what's cool about this too is the 6-speed automatic makes this feel a bit more normal. You know, you have the 10-speed and it just kind of feels like you're driving a semi-truck, because it's constantly shifting with the way that this engine, it can't really rev super high. The overall tune and programming on this paired with the 6-speed, it does feel like it uses a bit more of that power band. I don't know if that's where the car goes. I did just unintentionally black smoke that Jeep that was parked on the side of the road. Somebody find me a Prius. I need to black smoke a Prius while I'm driving this. Yes! Oh, this is actually very entertaining driving this. Whenever I drive these diesel trucks, I'm just reminded of how much I like them, because I don't really drive them that often, you know. Like I told you guys in the 2026 F450 video, I mean, they're not often in the press fleet, so it's a treat when we're able to experience these. But also, it'll be fun today to see how this has lasted, or how it's held up rather, over the last 10 years and 60,000 miles. Throttle response in this is instantaneous, and this may have something to do with whatever sort of tune is on this truck. It's possible that, you know, it messes with throttle and things. I'm sure it does. I do want to get this off the line. There's a button right here for traction control. Very easy to press there. Single press turns that off. We are going to be mindful here, though. This is probably going to spin its wheel. Let's try it. Okay, this is in manual mode now. I want to do this from a roll in second gear and see if it just lights the tires up. Yep, it spun its wheels into third. Okay, that answers my question there. Let's get this back into drive. Now, I'm not going to brake torque this because it's 10 years old and I don't want to risk breaking anything. Not to say that it would break, but I don't know. I just use cars. I like to be a little bit careful. So we'll roll into it and see how it gets off the line. There's 60. My goodness, there's a sense of urgency with this. There's a little bit of a boost by gear situation going on. We saw that as well with the 2026 F450. Ooh, I want to wait. This is great Ford, heavy-duty Ford truck stuff right here. Check this out. Classic OBS flatbed with a vintage ice cream truck on the back. A GMC ice cream truck. You tell them, Ford. The power's a little bit peaky with this. It could have to do with if this truck does actually have a tune on it. That's the thing with cars off a used lot. You never really know the history of them, so you don't know like what's really going on. But I'm just having a blast with this. I think this truck's really fun to drive. Steering weight here is super light. I think it sounds really good too. Passing power here is just fantastic. The torque in these big diesel trucks is just lovely, and it really opens your eyes to the difference between horsepower and torque these do. I mean, just the raw power at 2,000 RPM is wild. And I love that this has the actual physical gauges, because seeing this needle just sweep, I mean, this only goes to 100 miles an hour. So this needle is in a bit of a hurry all the time, no matter what, especially when you're getting on it. It does kind of warp your perception of the speed here. Afternoon, Hoss. Just roast the tires into second gear. Also, there's some sort of wind noise with this. I think it's those silly aftermarket lights that somebody put on top of this, or it's got a bad window seal somewhere. I can't really tell. If I had to guess, I would say that it's the cab lights. Ah, it's me. Okay, this is validating that this truck has the short bed, because this truck, the bed looks a bit longer on that one. Right, so what is this actually like once you are cruising on the highway? Well, our MPG hasn't moved from 8 average the entire time, but I was gonna say I've been gassing it, but can you say that? This doesn't take gasoline. I've been dieseling it everywhere. So we haven't been super efficient. I want to try out the air-conditioned seat. Usually these days, you know, you'd say ventilated, cooled seat, whatever. This actually has the AC logo on it. So I guess you could call this an air-conditioned seat. We'll see how this works out. Well, apart from some of the creature comforts that I can't really confirm or deny are still working, actually riding in this truck, okay, no, now I'm feeling the airflow. I'm feeling it on my butt, which is another place that it's a little bit moist right now based on the outside temperature of 90 degrees. There it is. I told you guys it was hot. Well, it's a bit loud in here because of the wind noise, which isn't really the truck's fault. And then the Cooper tires, they howl a little bit. So you've got a little bit of wind noise going on in this thing, but it's kind of to be expected. You know, you don't always get a big Super Duty truck like this and expect it to be silent going down the highway. I just don't think that's an expectation that anybody has. And who's to say that maybe the higher trim trucks weren't a little bit quieter. But overall, it's a little bit louder than the truck that's 10 years newer that I just drove. But honestly, I feel like ride quality in this is a little bit nicer somehow. I mean, yeah. Okay. I picked the worst time to say that. But I think ride quality is a little bit nicer in this than it is in the 450 dually. Seems maybe a bit more supple. Maybe the seats are just a little bit softer. These are very soft leather seats in this truck. They're very nice. Obviously power. They've got lumbar adjust. That's nice. And seating position in this truck is quite good as well. I've got the seat all the way down in its lowest position. I love this steering wheel. This is back when Ford would actually give you a unique looking steering wheel on a Super Duty. You've got these 3 lines in here, like the Built Ford Tough theme going on. Pretty simple layout here. The buttons are a little bit small. I think they probably could have used this kind of square footage a little bit better. You kind of have to have, stealing James May's words here, you have to have fingers like cocktail sticks to use these buttons. And if you're a big hairy-chested man with work gloves on, I don't know that you're going to quite be able to hit this OK button very precisely or be able to cancel your cruise control very easily. Those are very small. But nice commanding horn on this, able to hear that still on the highway, and easy to hit that. The way this truck drives down the road, as far as the steering, the ride, everything still feels really tight on this 60,000 miles later. Now, this hasn't been driven to the extent that a lot of these Super Duties are. I mean, if this truck were to have average miles on it, it would be over double this. So if you're looking at a 2016 Super Duty, obviously, you know, due diligence, make sure it's nice, have it inspected. But for a third of the price of that 450 that I was driving, it's just, it seems like it's almost all of that truck. Now, obviously, these Super Duty trucks, they're meant to work. If you have things in the bed, if you're towing things, they do ride a little bit better. And that goes as far as comparing this to that 2026 Super Duty as well. This can't do quite as much as that. This doesn't have the gooseneck attachment. This doesn't have the dually rear wheels in the back. So, you know, there are trade-offs. Now, this isn't to say that you couldn't go out and find a 2016 dually 350 or 450 that would be able to do just about everything that newer F450 could do for a fraction of the price, especially if you find one that has some more miles on it. This one is very low miles for the year. But this just goes to show that those trucks are out there, and I do always want to emphasize that the used market does exist, and these trucks are out there. These trucks that have been very well looked after. I mean, this interior seems to have held up pretty well. We have to do windows down for this next bit. I also just kind of want to drive this windows down for a little bit and turn the air conditioning up. As we know, this is the most efficient way to drive a vehicle when it's 90 degrees out. Windows down, AC up. But you have to be able to hear it if you're going under a bridge like this. Play the sound to your people. Let's see how it sounds. Yes! Yes! I understand why these guys drive these trucks the way they do. You know, sometimes it's easy to get frustrated with people that have these diesel trucks with exhaust and tunes on them, but it's just the same sort of way that I would be driving like a Maserati MC20 right now. You know, I would want to be doing some throttle opening. You just have to know that everyone around you hates you, and I'm okay with that right now. Oh, there, I've black smoked a Prius. Today's objective is complete. What have I become? Put the windows back up, they're tinted. Just in time for people to not be able to see who I am. But here's the thing though, you don't always have to be obnoxious with one of these. You know, just driving this around normally, I really do like, and I've already said this, but I like the feeling through this accelerator pedal. And the tuning on this 6-speed gearbox is really nice as well. It's very smooth shifts, and it kind of always knows what gear to be in. And if you're on throttle very quickly, like we saw under that bridge situation there, it knocked me down right to the gear I needed to be at. Kickdown is lovely on this, and it just does everything I want it to do. Okay, let's talk interior rattles before we park, because there are some, and there are always going to be some on a big pickup truck like this, especially one that's very sort of rigid and has solid axles. There's just less flex. There's less things to be able to move around. We're going to get this out of here without running the curb over. We're going to use those lower sections of the tow mirrors. But yeah, there are some interior rattles. You'll hear them in the video. Not as bad as I thought this would be, but again, this truck only has 60K on it. This is quite the full parking lot today, so we're going to be strategic with this. I'm going to park this along the back because I can kind of hang my bed over the grass here, and that should be fine. But here's another way that going for a single rear wheel 350 is going to be a little bit easier for you than going with a dually, because they are just that much easier to park. You know, you're able to get this into a spot and not take up multiple. This doesn't have the long bed, so I've got a little bit more room over the back here. Parking sensors letting me know that I'm a little close to that tree, but that's okay. And this has a proper parking brake that I'm not going to use, because I never trust those in used vehicles either. So we're going to leave this in its park gear. But as far as maneuvering this goes, you know, not having a 360 camera in this, it's a little bit of a bummer. Obviously, a newer truck would be easier there. But we'll check my work here. We'll shut this thing off, take our key out of the ignition. This has comfort access. It's moving my seat back for me. I think we're actually going to be in this spot pretty well. It looks like it. Yeah, okay, yeah, no, we're in the spot perfectly fine. Sweet. All right, well, I'm going to lock this up. I'm going to go get my food, and then we will continue our journey here in the Powerstroke Ford. Walking back up to the 2016 F-350 with my lunch in one hand. You better hope that you have a free hand, because obviously, since we have door handles from the early 2000s, there is no sort of fancy proxy key or anything, but with a 10-year-old vehicle, you don't really expect it. The coolest thing about these Fords is that you sometimes get these little keypads. So if you go for a hike or something, or a run, you want to leave the keys in the truck, and you know your combination, it's just like getting into a locker. That's good. Right, all right, well, a fellow Ford's alarm is going off, so let's use our key to get into our truck. Sometimes it takes a couple clicks to get in. And we'll pull ourselves in. We'll test the quietness. Not super quiet. All right, I'm going to start this up because it is hot. Very hot. I love that graphic. Not that one, the one before it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and have my lunch real quick as the sweat makes the camera slide down my face. And then we will go ahead and finish up this video and give you some final thoughts. All right, now that I've eaten a poke bowl in what I think is maybe a record time for me, I was very hungry. Let's finish out our drive in this F-350, and I think I'm just going to take this back to Gene Butman Ford, and that will be our little end of the video, and we'll wrap our commute kind of when we get there. So, as we leave the parking lot, why don't we give you a sound system test here of this Sony. I'm going to turn my vent speed down because I had this going crazy because I was very hot. But you guys can see what this Sony system can do. Sorry, I had to be a child one more time. Overall, sound system is really not that bad. Obviously, these newer trucks, like, they've just gone nuts with them, with the B&O Unleashed systems having all the speakers in the headliner and stuff. It's just wild. But hey, these old Sony systems, I think they're a little bit underappreciated. Like my dad's 2016 Focus RS, same year as this, which the interior seems a bit newer in that RS, but anyway. The Sony system in that is pretty good too. So, you know, I don't really have any complaints with this. Also, the fact that this infotainment system is new enough where you can pair your phone with it, and it's like actually somewhat modern, you know, it's an all right setup. And this is another one of those things where if you're comparing this to a new truck, I mean, really the only thing infotainment wise you're missing out on in one of these is Apple CarPlay. And I bet you there are a million screens you could get that fit right into this bezel that's already on the truck that you could run Apple CarPlay on. So it would be, I think, fairly straightforward to do that swap into this, and it would make it feel just that much more modern. Overall though, like as far as living with this thing goes, drivability wise, you're really not in that different of a league versus a brand new truck. Like, I'm pretty happy with the way that this drives. There's nothing glaring that after 60,000 miles is like wrong with this truck. Like, everything feels really nice and tight, like we talked about when we were on the highway. And even though some of the materials in here are very much subpar, top of the dash is like the scratchiest plastic material that I've ever felt. Same with the door panels. The front ones might be a little bit nicer. The rears are pretty embarrassing. But, you know, this was kind of in that transitionary period where they were trying to introduce more luxury features into these trucks. Like, I've got memory seats up here. We showed you the wood trim on this. So at least from where I'm sitting, it looks pretty decent. Like, the steering wheel is leather wrapped. That's a good thing. My goodness, this road is terrible. I think I'm going to get off of it. We touched a little bit on maneuverability back in that parking lot, but this is kind of the same sort of situation. The same thoughts I had with that 450 is that, you know, these trucks, they're so easy to see out of, and the steering is so light, and they just, they really benefit any body size as well. Like, you could be a lot shorter than me, you could be a lot taller than me, and I think you would be okay in this truck. And it's not that hard to drive, you know? I think people have this misconception that these big trucks are very, very hard to place, and the truth of the matter is they're really not. I mean, obviously they're harder to place than something like a Nissan Versa, you know, which is a very small car, but I think for what it is, they've really got the ergonomics in this figured out. And actually, speaking of ergonomics, even the elbow surfaces aren't too bad. The elbow bit here is a different material than the scratchy plastic at the top of the door panel, so that's nice for your left elbow. And then this big console here is quite squishy as well. Driver's compartment is massive. I mean, the only thing you have going on down here are cup holders, really. That's like the whole purpose of this little midsection here, is just to house cup holders. So you've got a lot of room in this truck. You can spread out. I mean, my legs have not touched either side, the door panel or the console. Just so fun to be obnoxious in this. Sound from that turbo, sucking in so much air. Yes. Overall, okay, pleasantly surprised at how well this truck still drives. I think it's reasonably priced, and not necessarily this truck in particular. I mean, maybe it is. I didn't look up values before I went out, but this truck being 40 grand. When it was new, it was 67,000. Actually, I'll have the full spec in the description for you guys, because I have the original Monroney for this. It was on the website, so that's nice. But brand new, this truck would have been like 51,000, as spec 67 grand, so 16,000 in options and destination. These days, it being 40,000, yes, that does seem like a lot, but you have to understand that these big heavy-duty trucks, especially when they have low miles on them, they do hold their values well. That at least I know. Now, I don't know, you know, 40,000, where that sort of lies on the price scale for this particular truck, but just comparing it to a brand new truck, a brand new equivalent Lariat F-350, you're going to be, you know, leagues below that for a truck that still feels fairly new. So just always something to consider, you know, looking at trucks on the used car market and just seeing what your options are. It's never a bad idea. So let's get this pulled into this church parking lot that's next to the dealership. and we will give you one last look at this thing and wrap it up. Kind of a quicker video today on this, but they're actually waiting to run this through service till I'm done with it. So it was literally next in line for service, and they let me take it out. So another big shout out to Gene Butman Ford for tossing me the key to this 2016 F-350 Super Duty Lariat. If you guys are interested in this particular truck, I'll have it linked down in the description. This will hopefully be posted like a couple of days after I shoot this. So if you want this exact truck, go in there, let them know that Topher sent you, and they'll take good care of you. And that also helps me as well. Obviously, it helps us film more of these used vehicles in the future. So let's shut this off for the last time. I think this air-conditioned seat, it just takes a minute for it to like boot up, because that was blowing pretty strong there towards the end. Very similar door handle situation to get out as you have in the newer trucks. That's it. Wow, they've even done, I didn't notice this, they've even done pinstriping on the pillars. Check that out. All right, guys, well, that's going to wrap it up here for this lovely truck that, you know, every time I drive one of these big Super Duty, heavy duty, whatever you want to call it, one of these big trucks, I just like them more and more, and I get why people drive them. Is it silly to drive this as a daily? Yes, but if you don't have a choice, if you're starting up a company or something and you have to narrow it down to one vehicle that can do it all, these are still able to do the thing. So there you go. That's what it's like, a little glimpse into what it's like to daily drive one of these trucks. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions about this. And again, the link to this exact truck will be in the description. But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you guys again, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.